So, you like to play Castlevania?
What?
Anybody who grew up on the NES library knows Castlevania. Although it became a series with a number of games, it's been somewhat dormant in recent years from what I understand, and I gotta be honest, although I'm pretty sure I played the first game at least once in my life, I don't think I've ever considered myself to be a fan. It's funny, you know, the term Metroidvania is now ubiquitous in the gaming sphere, but I feel like I hear way more about the first half of that word than the second half. As a matter of fact, the first thing I think of when Castlevania comes up in any context is the same thing that I imagine a lot of people my age think of when they hear it, and that's the angry video game nerd. The very first AVGN episode ever made was on a game called Castlevania Simon's Quest, and while he didn't know it at the time, those 3 magic words at the beginning of the video would send massive reverberations down the legacy of video game criticism.
This game sucks.
Without Castlevania, there would be no Angry Video Game Nerd, and without AVGN, I may never have started talking about games myself. So somewhere in here, there is a full circle. It's weird, in my head it's hard to separate those two concepts. And apparently the developers of this mod thought so too, because they actually put him in the game.
That was some turkey.
Like I said before, the thing I've been trying to step up with every single marathon that I do is variety, and even though I played a lot of Doom mods in my time, Castlevania is one of those things that I have literally never spoken of, so when a Castlevania-inspired mod for Doom was brought to my attention, it was a bit of a no-brainer. And now you know the entire backstory behind this video. Castlevania Simon's Destiny is a Doom mod that puts you in the shoes of Simon Belmont. Armed with a whip and whatever projectiles you can find, fight your way through 6 big-ass levels, smashing open every single set piece you see to get extra ammunition, which you're really gonna need. The game is marketed as a reimagining of the original game on the NES, but unlike something like The Legend of Zeldoom, where it's one big sprawling map made to resemble the original game perfectly, a lot more liberties have been taken to make the game work in this strange new dimension of first-person whipping. Hot. Although the game is built upon Doom, the actual gameplay dynamic is entirely different. Doom is a first-person shooter, but because guns weren't invented in Simon Belmont's time, you are instead armed with a whip, meaning that you are primarily reliant on melee attacks. You have to get close enough to the enemies to hit them, which puts you in the line of fire. The game is mostly balanced around this fact, so you won't have to worry about getting your dick knocked off for bullshit reasons, and a lot of the principles are still the same. Circle strafing, dodging projectiles, spacing, positioning, and timing, but you whip bats with a spike ball on a chain. That is incredibly cathartic. There are projectiles though, they just happen to be pretty finite, especially on the higher difficulties. Because I learned absolutely nothing from Golden Souls 2, I ended up picking the second hardest difficulty. It was actually pretty manageable, probably because there are no water levels in the game, although the boss fights are absolute dickheads, which makes sense. What kind of boss fight would it be if it was easy? The coolest part of the game is the resource management. The projectiles are fueled by these collectible hearts, which you can only get by destroying every individual set piece. You'd think smashing a candlestick would get old quickly, but it never does. You also have to strategically keep track of which projectiles work best in each situation, because if you pick up a different one, it replaces the one you already had, which I think is how it worked in the original game. You also have to scan every single wall and pillar to find a slightly discolored tile so you can smash it open for a turkey to get your health back. And that's another thing, unlike Doom where you have to press every wall to find the secrets, in this game you physically smash them open with your whip, and it's incredible. You gotta wonder who it was that cooked all these turkeys and started hiding them inside walls. Maybe it was Fred Fox. It is a brief game with like 6 levels that you can blow through in a couple of hours, but there is absolutely no fat on this game. There is no meandering or getting lost. Doom was kind of infamous for its labyrinthine levels, where you could easily get stuck for 3 hours. This was not the kind of game that you could play in a typical gamer flow state, because you had to really pay attention to everything you've done and everywhere you've been, so you can find some key card that opens a door on the diametrically opposite end of the map. Simon's Destiny is far more straightforward in comparison. There are secrets and different routes and non-linear areas, but the level design is very readable, and the game doesn't drag its heels with it at all. The pacing is very efficient in this game. The only thing that really pissed me off would have to be the platforming. I feel like platforming in Doom mods has never been great. But since the original Castlevania is a platformer, it'd be very awkward to just remove it. You might say it's a skill issue, but I'd like to remind everyone for the millionth time that I did beat Dark Souls, which means it's actually illegal to say that I'm bad at video games. Because it's Doom, there is always the option to quick save and save scum your way through every single part of the game, but even on the second hardest difficulty, the game was never so insurmountable that I felt the need to do so. The game also makes an autosave when you reach the boss arena, so you don't have to fight all the way back to the boss when you get killed. The only problem with this is that if you entered the boss arena under-equipped, you might be screwed unless you made a quick save first. These bosses will kill you, so you really want to make sure you have as much ammo and health as you can possibly get. One thing that really stood out to me was the visuals. I know GZ Doom has been steadily updated over the years, but I did not know they could make games look this good. I'm talking reflections, real-time bump maps, bloom effects, fog effects, great animations, lighting, composition, drama. You kill the skeletons and their individual bones fly everywhere and are consumed by flame. It's a beautiful game brought to life by incredible innovations. The art direction here is just impeccable. There is a spectacular element of immersion, which is not something I always associate with Doom mods. It is incredibly atmospheric to a degree that cannot be taken for granted. Although it's Doom running underneath, the game has taken dramatic strides to look more like a medieval dark high fantasy thing, far removed from the cyber hell Mars theme of Doom. A more apt comparison would probably be something like Hexen. Yeah, I bet you haven't heard that name in a while. Did anyone else notice Phil Spencer wearing a Hexen t-shirt at the Xbox showcase? Maybe it's a sign, but probably not. Then there's the soundtrack. It's a mix of epic renditions made by official sources and a number of badass fan remixes. Now that's what you call a fan game. I feel like this is the type of game that can be enjoyed by anybody. If you're a fan of the original Castlevania and played it to death, there is an entirely new dynamic to this game that will freshen the otherwise exhausted experience. And if you've never played it before at all, this will all be new to you. It's familiar to Doom, but with the dramatically shifted dynamic of aggressive melee combat as opposed to gun-shootman combat, actually playing the game feels a lot different. So yes, I would recommend this game to everyone. And here we are, now with 3 days left of the marathon. With all the games we looked at, I'm almost worried that there won't be enough games left for the December marathon, but we shall cross that bridge when we get there. And for now, thank you so much for watching my video.